Formula One has been around for over 70 years. As international racing goes, Formula One is the highest class around. The sport has had its fair share of controversies, as well as historical accomplishments in its 72 years. With that many years of history, there are destined to be many drivers throughout. Want to know who people think is the greatest of all time? Join us to find out. First, let's talk about the history of Formula One. Formula One was not the first time that groups of people had gotten together to race cars against each other. In the early 1900s, when automobiles were still a relevant new innovation, the first ever Formula One race took place in the 1950s in Silverstone, England. Many people have attributed the creation of Formula One to the FIA. The reason for this is that it was the FIA who put the rules for the sport in place, as well as organized the championship feature of the sport that most people are familiar with. Others disagree and say that the credit cannot be given to just one person or organization. Even if the FIA isn't the creator of Formula One, they still serve as the regulating body of the sport. FIA makes the rules and enforces them. Formula One already has. In 2022, there have been 772 racers who have undergone at least one race since it was created. With Formula One being 72 years old, that means that around 10 new racers will have their first race per year. Of the 772 racers, their nationalities span over 41 different races and ethnicities. Next, let's talk about some of the greatest Formula One moments. Ever since 2012, the Grand Prix, which is the main motorsport competition when it comes in the world of Formula One racing, has been held once per year. One of the big Formula One race events was the 2500 United States Grand Prix. This 2005 race, was one that ended in a big tire company having to embarrassingly admit publicly that they did not have the ability to make tires safe enough for the races. This was because of the 13th turn, which proved difficult for the company's tires. This led to a chicane being installed on the 13th corner to slow the cars down. Another great moment from Formula One came in 1976, when Niki Lauda lived through an incident which involved the racer being burned alive. Niki Lauda had to suffer through a horrific experience after he was trapped in his car at the German Grand Prix. Thanks to the racers racing alongside him, he was dragged out of the car, and despite facing injuries so bad that the racer fell into a coma for a short amount of time, thanks to his fighting spirit, he raced again just 6 weeks later. Now, let's talk about arguably one of the most known Formula One racers, Jim Clark. With anything in history that has been done by over 800 people, it's hard to get your name known in the world of Formula One. There are plenty of racers who come and go and do not make an impact on the sport in any way. There are also racers in the sport who made their mark and will be remembered by many fans of the sport for years to come. One of those people was Jim Clark. Clark was a British racer, one who managed to win 2 world championships in 1963, and then 2 years later in 1965. When he won his first world championship in 1963, he set a record by winning 7 out of 10 races, a record that would not be broken until nearly 20 years later in 1994. Before his win in 1965, he came very close to winning the championship in 1964, but thanks to an unfortunately placed oil leak, he was forced to wait 1 more year to claim another victory. Unfortunately, during a race at the Hockenheimring in West Germany, attempting to get his second win of the night, Clark suffered a horrendous car crash that would end up taking his life at the age of 32 years old. Moving on, let's talk about some of Formula One's controversies. Saying that Formula One has accomplished many things or has had great achievements since it was created would be a lie, but to say that the news surrounding Formula One is always positive would be an even bigger lie. Like all things, especially those created in the 1950s, Formula One has had its fair share of controversies. One of the biggest controversies surrounding Formula One was the South African Grand Prix. In 1985, the race of the year was the South African Grand Prix. This came with controversy because in the years of the 80s, racial segregation was a big problem within South Africa, one that was so bad it caused a great number of sports to pull out of events that took place in the country. Another big controversy came recently when Formula One planned to make its debut in Doha, despite people voicing their dismay at Qatar's lack of human decency. Many were angry at Formula One, both at the people living in Qatar and those suppose not. One person who spoke out about it publicly was Lewis Hamilton, who was not at all quiet about the way he felt about the event. Lewis Hamilton said that it was one of the worst things that Formula One could have done. We're going to now talk about the second best ranked driver, Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher currently has the second highest win total in Formula One history, with 91 victories, and is only 12 victories away from tying for first. In 1991, Schumacher first entered the world of Formula One at the Belgian Grand Prix. Just 1 year after his first race, he was awarded by the German Motorsport Federation the ONS Cup, which is not only a great award to receive, but the greatest award that one can receive in German motorsport, with Schumacher himself from Germany. 1992 would not only be the time he got that award either. 2 years later, in 1994, and the following year, he got the award again. His fourth and final chance to get the award came in 2002. Germany is not the only country that has honored Schumacher. Sarajevo has granted Schumacher honorary citizenship. Also in the city can be found a great street mural of the driver, painted by a group of Sarajevo artists, and the city that was formerly called Transversal, which is now named after him. Sarajevo is not alone in giving him honorary citizenship, such as Maranello, Modena, and Spa have all done the same. Let's now discuss one of the earliest Formula One legends, Juan Manuel Fangio. Juan Manuel Fangio, who was born in 1911, was 39 years old when he competed in his first Formula One race. Fangio was one of the oldest drivers that Formula One had seen. Fangio raced at a time where there was little to no protective equipment in cars that were speedy and not very easy to use. Despite this, Fangio ruled over racing in the 1950s and set a great number of records. One record he set was when he won the World Driving Championships from 1951 to 1957. This record was so great that it stood for almost 50 years. It was finally beaten by Michael Schumacher in 2003. The next year, in 1958, when he retired at 47 years old, he had 24 World Championship races under his belt. His time as a Formula One racer earned him legendary status in Argentina, which is his home country. In Argentina, Fangio is commonly praised as one of the greatest sportsmen to come out of the country. Fangio is so respected in Argentina that the people even give him his own nickname, calling him El Maestro El Mejor, which in English would translate to the master, the best one. Finally, let's talk about Lewis Hamilton, who some are saying is the best racer. Lewis Hamilton has been racing in Formula One since 1997, and he has certainly made a name for himself in those 15 years. In 2022, Hamilton has done what it takes to win over 100 races. Hamilton currently has 103 wins under his belt, which is the current record held by any racer. He currently leads Michael Schumacher by 12 wins, with Schumacher having a far greater advantage than the third-place racer Sebastian Vettel, who has 53 wins. Hamilton's high score is one that can be beaten, but the record he set in getting there will not be beaten anytime soon. Lewis Hamilton set a record as the first racer to ever hit triple digits. The 37-year-old racer is an incredible racer, but when he isn't racing, he is speaking about things that he finds to be wrong about Formula One. Hamilton has been very outspoken about his support for people of LGBTQ ancestry. As a form of protest, Hamilton wore a helmet that was painted with LGBTQ+ colors in Qatar, which is a country that is known for its not-so-private cruel treatment towards LGBTQ+ people. Formula One has been around for quite some time, and it shows no sign of going anywhere anytime soon. It may not always make the best decisions, but it does always provide fans with entertaining races. Who do you think is the best Formula One driver? Let us know below.